It's been an interesting week or so since the launch of Season 1 for Battlefield 6. On the multiplayer side of things, Blackwell Fields hasn't exactly set fans alight with excitement, and thanks to some questionable communication, let's say, certain features that we assumed would make it into the large patch for the beginning of the season didn't end up making it. And on the other side, with the release of the RedSec Battle Royale, Battlefield now has a foothold in a brand new section of the FPS market that appears to have really captured a strong audience out of the gate, despite some teething issues. So, interesting, perhaps, is not the best way to describe this Season 1 update, and I'm kind of struggling for the right adjective here. However, things may now be able to take a turn for the better. In the last day or so, one of the most pressing issues with the game for the largest section of the player base has been talked about by certain developers: controller settings and aim assist. We'll get into that. And we're also going to need to talk about something called casual breakthrough. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. So go hit that like button to support the video and help it in the all-encompassing YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and join the channel. We are covering all things Battlefield 6 over here, RedSec and the multiplayer as well. Plus, we're creeping closer to that 1 million subscriber goal, and I'd love it if you could help us get there. Okay, we're going to start with something that's quite important for all players, and it's a brand new feature that's arrived with Season 1 that I've not seen many people talk about yet: the challenge re-rolling system. Battlefield 6's challenges have received enough bashing from me since the launch of the game due to some of their completely unrealistic targets, and many of them just not focusing players to help their squad mates or their team properly. So we'll put all of that to one side because we know the devs are actively working to restructure most of that. But one step towards that is this new weekly and daily challenge re-rolling system. So to do this, all you've got to do is head into the Challenges tab from the main menu, you select your challenge, and then you hit the option to re-roll it. Now, as you may already know, these weekly and daily challenges are individual to each person in Battlefield 6. They're not the same for the entire player base. So a re-roll isn't going to guarantee 100% a challenge that suits your playstyle, but you do have multiple rolls available, so hopefully you can land on something that you fancy doing to cash in on some of that extra XP. So all players get 1 daily and 3 weekly re-rolls, and then if you own Battlefield 6, you get 1 extra daily and weekly, and if you're a Battlefield Pro owner, you get another extra daily and weekly on top of that. Daily challenges, they automatically reset at 4 AM UTC, and then the weekly challenges, they reset at 12 noon UTC every Tuesday. And then, based on community feedback, the devs have now adjusted these rerolls to include the context for Battlefield RedSec, because not everyone wants to play that game mode, and so having rerolls include RedSec-specific challenges would be a bit of a waste if you only play the Battlefield 6 multiplayer. So now, when Battlefield 6 players re-roll a challenge, they'll be prevented from getting a RedSec-specific challenge, and the challenge will still be a random one, just with any other re-roll. And overall, I think this is a great system to introduce to the game. More player agency is always welcome, and giving players control over what random challenges they get day to day and week to week, which awards significant XP gains, is awesome to see. And to see the change regarding RedSec challenges implemented so quickly based on that feedback is great as well. I can think of a lot of other games that would have taken a lot longer to respond to that. Now, from the good news, I think we need to discuss something a little bit more controversial. Maybe a lot more controversial, depending on your viewpoint, but a few days ago, the Battlefield comms account posted about a brand new experience they've worked on, and they've now implemented it into Battlefield 6. It's called Casual Breakthrough. This is being pitched as a mode for players who don't want to immediately jump into an intense PvP lobby, and instead they want to have a more relaxed experience where they can earn progression and complete challenges. Casual Breakthrough features just 8 real players per team, 16 in the entire lobby, and then 16 bots per team, 32 in the lobby. In terms of progression, the mode will reward full XP for real player actions and reduced XP for bot actions. Basically, if you kill a real player, you'll get full XP, and you get reduced XP if you kill a bot. You'll earn career, weapon, battle pass XP, and be able to complete challenges, but you won't be able to earn dog tags or accolades, and the matches won't count towards your career stats. Now, on the face of it, explaining that to you, I think it's pretty obvious that this is not a game mode for me, And for a lot of you guys watching this video, it's probably not a game mode for you as well. It's not something I'm interested in playing because I've got no interest in killing bots when I could be in a full real player lobby. So I was just going to leave it at that. But then at the bottom of the statement, the Battlefield comms account asked for feedback on this implementation. So here we go. Here's my feedback from a player that definitely won't play the mode, and it was never designed for me in the first place. If the devs are introducing a casual breakthrough experience in response to normal lobbies being intense with PvP, I think you're actually misinterpreting the data that you're collecting completely. Instead of implementing proper changes, balance tweaks, and fixes to the regular breakthrough experience to make it less of a PvP meat grinder hellhole on most of the maps and make it more like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 versions, which were far better, I think you're skirting around the issue that you've got and you're trying to create a quick fix to a much larger problem. Breakthrough currently suffers in Battlefield 6 on a fundamental level because the mode is being shoehorned onto maps that it doesn't suit. This creates extremely frantic, sweaty, close-quarter situations where perhaps lesser skilled players, and I say that with no malice whatsoever, they suffer at the hands of better ones. Tiny one-flag sectors that create bees round a honeypot situations, objectives in more than one-flag sectors being way too close to one another, insufficient reinforcements, and the lack of a wave system that was present in Battlefield 1's operations, and even the lack of maps being linked together in the style of Battlefield 1's operations as well, all contribute to this absolutely abhorrent experience on Breakthrough for the casual player in Battlefield 6. Now, I gave this feedback during the beta for the Rush game mode, and I think it applies to Breakthrough as well. Most of Battlefield 6's maps are not designed to work with Breakthrough, and they don't suit the characteristics of the game mode at all. If the developers, instead of creating a new entry point to matchmaking with this casual version of Breakthrough, thus splitting the player base further and creating more bloat in the menus, focused on adjusting and redefining the base game mode and adjusting the layouts on certain maps, I think they'd end up with a better scenario. Right now, adding a casual Breakthrough game mode is almost like admitting that Breakthrough as it currently exists in this game isn't what you intended. And I'd stand by that statement. I don't think it's what you intended. Breakthrough used to be the only game mode that I played in Battlefield 1. It was called Operations back then. And in Battlefield 5, it was pretty much the only game mode that I played. And I didn't play much of Battlefield 2042 for obvious reasons, but I pretty much always play Breakthrough. But now, I don't think I'd ever play it in Battlefield 6. It's a terrible implementation of the game mode, largely thanks to the maps not suiting it, and the insistence of all maps being supported for all game modes. That's been a problem with Battlefield for years, and unfortunately here in Battlefield 6, I'm seeing no improvement on that stance. Right, that's enough talk about casual Breakthrough, given my opinion there. On to something far more important. The way Battlefield 6 plays on controller. There's been a lot of talk since the launch of Battlefield 6 that the settings during the open beta for controller players were far better than what we currently have in the game right now. And it appears the developers have been listening to that feedback, and they're now ready to react. Based on a tweet reply from Matthew Nickerson, console and controller design lead for EA, Battlefield 6 will soon see a revert back to the open beta implementation of aim assist. Now, I spoke to Lackey and Jaff about this because, as you well know, I'm a mouse and keyboard player, and I've got little to no experience using a controller. They've summarized the current experience for me and how it's going to change when we move back to the open beta settings. Right now in Battlefield 6, the current aim assist settings ramp the value up and down depending on the magnification of your scope to try and create a uniform feeling across the board, but it's doing it in a weird way that feels terrible. This is leading to a lot of controller players across PlayStation, Xbox, and PC to feel as though they're fighting against the aim assist in many cases, where it's not possible to make adjustments to your aim, especially when you're using higher zoom optics. Sniping on controller right now can feel very difficult and quite unintuitive. The open beta aim assist setting applies flat amounts across the board. That leads to better muscle memory when using a controller to aim at targets, and leads to less immediate snapping to and then losing your target. There's far less stickiness overall, meaning there's less of that rotational persistence that's currently active in the game. There was a consistent slowdown with no ramp in the open beta. And it also meant the larger reduction in weapon recoil when using a controller wasn't as prevalent during the open beta, and whilst that is a separate system in Battlefield 6, that will be adjusted once the game is reverted to these open beta settings. And there's also a central dead zone bug on PC right now when using a PlayStation 5 controller that needs to be resolved. Instead of the dead zone being a circle, it's actually a square, and that leads to a lot of weird aiming issues. It's being looked at, and it's likely to be fixed in an upcoming patch. Now, all of this is a little bit fuzzy to me because, like I say, I don't use a controller, so I don't have to think about these things very often. But the general feedback that I have seen on social media from controller players since launch is that they don't really feel as though the game plays very well with a controller at the moment, at least compared to what was present in the open beta, where I know the controller, like, actual input settings were weird, where it didn't feel like, you know, the controller was being utilized properly, like all the buttons were in the wrong place, but it definitely felt better to actually aim at people. So to that end, it's good to see the developers reacting and making changes, especially when the input that doesn't feel very good is used by a significant portion of the player base. And lastly, we're going to talk about weapon dispersion, or bloom again. I'm going to get so fed up of saying that word by the time the devs fix it, but unfortunately, due to some muddy wording and phrasing with the patch notes and community updates from Battlefield comms on Twitter, it seems that the message regarding weapon bloom or dispersion didn't really land in the right way. I thought Season 1 was set to fix the weapon bloom issues Battlefield 6 has been dealing with since launch, but that wasn't the case. According to several reports now from developers post-Season 1 patch, although the update did make some minor changes to weapon recoil and bloom, the patch did not include fixes to bugs related to bloom, as those issues were identified and isolated after the Season 1 patch was locked in and certified. Now, according to our Lord and Saviour Drunksy, those fixes will go live in another patch soon, and that a more general pass on weapon bloom is being cooked up as well. That is something that was already communicated as coming later. I just think the wires got crossed about which fixes we were going to be getting at what time and what's coming later versus at the beginning of Season 1. So just to confirm, more weapon bloom fixes are coming, and you'll see those in a patch in the near future. So it's safe to say that the Season 1 kickoff for Battlefield 6 didn't quite land as well as it could have, but for the most part, people still seem to be playing this game in massive numbers, so despite some of the issues, the less than stellar Blackwell Fields map for multiplayer, and the divisive launch of RedSec, Battlefield 6 is still going strong. Now, I want to finish by addressing some comments that I've seen on some of my videos recently, accusing me of abandoning multiplayer purely for RedSec. Come on, guys. It's only been a week. I said in my preview video of Season 1 that Blackwell Fields wasn't a map that I really enjoyed that much. I think the red color grading is ridiculously excessive, and it made me not like the look of the map either. I just didn't really like it. I also said that I loved the Eastwood map, but that's not launching till mid-November, and we're still not in mid-November yet. Why would I play a map like Blackwell Fields that I don't enjoy? I'm just patiently waiting for Eastwood to launch. And during that time, I've been getting on board with RedSec and enjoying the Battle Royale. Back in 2020, I stopped playing Battlefield 5 because it wasn't getting support anymore, and I switched to Warzone because my friends were loving playing it, they asked me to come and play it, and I end up loving it as well. Now Battlefield has its own Battle Royale, and me and my friends are loving playing that too. I'm just doing what I enjoy. I'm not abandoning multiplayer, I'm not exclusively going to play RedSec forever. Hell, some people have already called me out for only playing Arc Raiders once since it launched. There's only 24 hours in a day, and I am but one Westie. There's only so much I can do. I want to play it all, but I can't do everything at once. So I'll post what I enjoy, and hopefully there will be stuff posted on the channel that you'll enjoy watching. Catch you in the next one.